Thank you, William. And finally for this session, we have Ulli Freer. The official blurb here says, living and working in London, Ulli is a member of the Vera editorial collective. His work has been published in several magazines, including And, Curtains, Vera Way, Cleave 2. Publications include Boulevard's Equipage, Sandpole's Equipage, Eyeline, Spanner, Speak Bright, Leap Password, Salt, Burner, Dear Books, and Recovery, Rock Direct. Ulli is again another one of these very important poets for me and for a lot of people, I think. I was just looking at a poetry review from 19 whatever it was, one of the Eric Mottram ones, and he's in there. He's that important a figure, as Ulli McCarthy. So he's already started, so Ulli Freer.
Recovery. Drawn black accounts catch lacing in threads of interest, drapes in another sensibility spread, leads to a footnote kicking walls, was a graffiti instinct with thirst scrawled upon across bliss, aimed at hand, flesh to be left, felt without body, accompanied by a doorway, at threshold satellite detention, changed face, be found in sandstone forms of embedded duplicity, in others closed eyes to chase thought, and replicate footsteps to barricades, tide marks on jaw, pale skin in voicing conundrum, as the most overused blankets waiting for patience, heard loitering memories, the hierarchies trod old trench deeper, custody charming around corners in streets cordoned, knots forensic eyes smashed in blushing, all denials between dusty breath, hit the wall man-handled directed, as lost to crack in snapshot, in vintage heels with vertigo by investigation, under hood be interrogation, real from identity impressions, push all resources, vibrates bribery, substantial in the wake, rate of hands enduring provocations, sense of subsistence beating motivation to lick hollow-handled spades, or shapes like other tools, leave standard-sized scars, sweatshop smudge blueprints upon steaming mirrors, consumed in sideshow mist, see protesters revealing shareholders, daubed in others' blood, as flowers around bunker. This sea light reminds in wave fluctuation that business hangs over cliffs, whose eyes vault cells in overcrowded prisons, with the other on the floor vagrant, meditations on camera, streetwise their communication from alleys, spins, spills, bedroom extra, and your boss, someone process, space, masked, writing online, proceed from politics assumes market expanding where skin marks margin, body bags behind counter closed, palm closes, strikes through line, undemoniable thick grey clouds, look for light sequences, spelling labour, cohesion, enliking, association, you get forger scrawl behind chatter, high interest calculations, commute via thermals, open outcry, meanders, ghosting point var disposition, and scour erosion, outcropping bedrock in depression, continuous sinuous ribbons sand to sand, with protuberance either side, threads needle, pricks accumulation, reservoir connectivity as deposits embryonic influence sweep efficiency of enhanced recovery technologies, could clouds hoard from drizzle, sunk in marshy conditions during stretch of peat, on the pounds in geld, on a heron treading steps in manufacture, are partial copies of each other, headed down types closely related to following, under flyover smash of feathers lost, correlations of luxury goods in high level of armaments, from edge of light subjected to the air nebulous, and full of rotten bracken, convert surface slope changes, water purred and muddy in which to soak, and scrape over on a frame frame stretched for drying, and face doors to transcribe, a hand heard that could not be read, from an occurrence of duplicated endings, smooth with pumice, margin departures, wall fly damage on drying, that earth sprung unfast and boggy, and a series of pleadings as an induction to mortuary structure. Holes have been pasted with patches to hair sides, with pressure word sounds in shallow furrows, values demolished in scaffold space, horizontal rulings pulverized chalk rubbed white, whiteness leaving a conspicuous blemish, faulting and folds bring chalk to view. A barrier straddles a neck of land as it doubles back on itself between two reaches, and lost there reeds and sedge, chatline factors muffled, wharfs linked by construction disturbances, pulsations from these gashes tap open windows until all is covered in layers of dust, reroute uniform wound coverage, wealth to death disposal, fossilized percentages, repeating fragments written against weighing, preload unbalanced and export, articulations in pyramidal, ranking, clawback overlapping in barrow, fine sound separates to reverb through storage and recollection, voicing clusters of stratification, end of scale timbre, should be kept on the person to ward off all status, and that the smoke of it is good for all manner of views in the eyes, gathered without iron, without needle, that through the hand threads bank, with right hand thrust undergarment, through the left armhole, as though the gatherer were thieving, the doing of to any poor by their following. Here crossfires of hysteria stumble on struggle. On this is no hill, a growth bulges with excessive waste, and profit showers acid over woods of the commons, long dismembered into energy crisis. Austerity, deep spreading web space infection, in an extra bedroom, naked and blindfolded, free from the censor trap on free channels viewed, contains public square for reception, and escalates solid blue combative cordon, under plant tall towers rates circulate, in artificial light collapse contrast, metallic bones shine in company, mirrors the companies, shadowy under towers duration, be under tourniquet stress, sticks down the shirts to their backs, glass burning for reflection before the blown up attitudes regarding interest, compounds irregular slippage, river police float by expressionless, yet heads obese without conscience, are under bridge employed to overconsume, and what's not suspect in rising tide, mistakenly looking official, with a word processing managed, smearing ink strokes applied eyedropper, legality in dual solution experienced, masked surgeons behind locked doors, behind interfered with screens, and streets push a load raw submission in trust, light intensity variation in the image determining meaning. You are behind high fence, although made of metal creates uneven darkness, rejected that winding up line razor wired was a legal term of art, a technical understanding requires your confinement in an oxygen sucking rush by their liquidation under supervision, interpreted in a way in which a reasonable commercial person would construe them, allows for a tendency that should be against literalism, liberty without owning any person of his own kind, writing into passages have gone, bringing his breakfast onion steady income. Recovery. From another hotbed risen, from infected, leaves, then spotted him, producing teeth as sore, sloping letters like splayed and decline, largely illusionary, this body of schooners of main stroke, with a consequent assimilation, foot served to the head position, precarious over cliff, feel of impulse from peninsula entwined, with narrations of rurality, bracken-fired incantations of authentic community, and city social breakdown, capital rhetoric, stand trial sentence, got their jobs reinstated, blares groups of backs against the wall. Agitators waved their overtime-enhanced pay slips, had no connection with coal or our branches, and sought to provoke incidents, up shields ordering hammering upon them for a deeper political will, battens beating shields to psych out the broken. From vast crush like we were fighting for more than a field, what is our commons, not sectioned off fiscal individualism swallowed, hanging under ancient oaks, under riverbanks, aligned to austral movement of sun from solstice to solstice. Such signs of finality and clouded cameos continue. Barrenness presents itself upon smoke screens, grey rocky clusters, smothers hookers green, speeding the message slaves with their bodies to undertake the journey, their minds to understand the message, and mouths to repeat it to the recipient, header and body in a vernacular of the country. On the following word broken, claw of the hand hose serrated, echo through settlement, mattocks raised right raw soil, struck too close to planting, chances scarring past, outer village gardens, deep furrows ploughed land, waves held by walls, high walls in a lockdown, imposing barrier, fingerprinted headlines upon skin, with dogs provided, race embrace some stubble against the elements, bellow for the wiring to surge the body into producing factory outages, unseen particles account for dark matter, the nightly finished shift, passing through bodies clocked out bone resistant. The nightly finished shift, passing through bodies clocked out bone resident, resistance in clouds, nightly skipping, mouths parched, labelled, answers crafted, exported forcefully, a lead white flakes, bullion-weighted eradication, this mine-hand majority of gramo euro my trucks contain a lump wax loaded to turn on, oh highlight. Inside him, tuned in, would think information technology, word of mouth rather than written, what was said and slips off tongue, misspoken, be tripped off, hallucinating to become the chair in his own room, approaching pension age, as management, so suited, and speak in cadaver chatter, having their own products cannibalized, bent over wall to street of the last remaining cobbles, ran over them wet, an art made brand Britain. Drop out, outrider, out of court, output behind derma screen complexions, minimum wage by handling buying, slate sharp dressed bracken, gates sway this way in barren long barrows, static, knots reflected, future quivers, an extensive search. Your heartbeat has to be scrolled down to avoid any remote indication of oxygen in the back of refrigerated transporter, passage condensed in a tunnel through mountain range, housing guarantees icy reception, family rendition replacements out social services, frozen retail for food and retail employment, voice in shallows far from coral, boarding belted, dobro belong, tongue desires yet players vague promise is maroon on coast, breath white chalk talk foxes and wild boars roam urban, swallow tears from unsettled welcome, fragmented concrete, some dated arrivals scratch granulated incomes below floors, gold markets in haze contaminations, and bids of vague promises now demising, shadow my clasp in Hazel's copist, cut reply, left hand memory withdrawn, you're punished by sacking, jagged pulses, circulatory defects, dentation, contractions, signage, smudged service, stationary as seismic sun, rising from no futures in the valleys, far from the private estate of rat-shorn cypress tops, if the easterly blast proves very tedious, each to his hedging, funds bloated growth in market pits, travel blackthorn, coalition from blossom head ads of sheep dipped dripping acids, collusion, made up rouge slashes, designed wool of ownership initials, a pretext to deter carrion crows, peeking from iambics, slackened screwheads so damaged, elbows to knead, all apprenticeships, greasy from the Middle Ages, contractual abuses to control these youth by state piercings, state funerals, Winston Churchill's, saving policy, single story, conservatory bill, and E company housing, yo, green at the hid in the sack, carted from ghetto. Check I right to the bottom, loaded to overload in motion. Through emotion, sift your refuse collection. A story of art decay, brand spread, the poetry, no pits, spacing aura of certainty, equilibrium, April compacted snow, motorway line upon line, rushing through cramped veins via frozen trip on foliage addiction, root amongst limestone, rock format, painter of rich list, coral gold of waves embraced by toxins, laden ear of amber, quiver voice, future long tongue of desires, below vague shadow is your penury, penumbra. Affect the dentations so touched, the electronic bars narrow, whose rising sun travels screen indicates reply, let circulation on the boil, contracts, contractions, triple futures, make up contracts, action lens, screw, single story conservatories, layoffs, gulfs between imbalance, endurance from a slaughtered mincing expression, galloping and butchered as we speak. Discord notions sound like the workers' party, hard from austerity, and harmonies from dispatch box light talk, as corpses pile upon each to their benches. More intrigues from air castles. Come the time, timeless long kidnapped Juge. Prevent attempts at docking. Moored landings filled in after they cleared docks. Coal rise out of my cutthroat. Livelihoods forked in soil by measures for exchange. Dates drone with these instruments under clouds, budgets. By laws of fingerprints on camera, tagged with hose, nation dogs tote serrated, with every detergent upon language, odds provided not a mere trace of voice, all networked past post. My labels sucked answers from container in a shafted love, lubricating nanomechanics to erect in every sector competing environments, export space to expand deficits, going for a song, deep blues beyond bruising. Diggers now pulled out her splinters, taken from the cabinet of curiosities, indication that covers are coloured layers of Prussian blue, confirm these overlapping hues of one nation, then must drover from pen to tracks, a carbon breath cruising, voices from enclosures waited, send 3 representatives with their remit, letter of credit, credence and mark, redress the passing. A mark-divided existence is sighting, cheap class frames trade against contamination, dusts are varnished, desirable postcodes glassed over cities set in professional glazed prints who have levelled themselves, dissolved by their outer edges, casting attention generally held behind same frame, recoups from spillage, split this damp state of moulding, contagious seeping glues with veneers divisionally deflective, stroke austerities dulls labour to cut costs by standardizations of simplified procedures sandwiched between actual productivity, image of working, blanked out benefit and homelessness. See your bones by others in moonlight between cables, bank collective eyes in deep basement, sends out wrong message. Light made same luminosity from floor and ceiling, as though given up on them. Air conditioning, if you were seeing. Thank you very much.